The West Tigers podcast is brought to you by the West Tigers Podcast Forum. Have your say on anything to do with the West Tigers. westtigers.com.au.
Last little pirouette. Now the kick from Caesar. Oh yes, Charlie Staines has scored. Terrific finish. And the Tigers on the board first. Papali'i is the decoy. Oh, tough pass. Well done, Caesar. Galvin throws a ball. Big chance. Oh, he is over. Fantastic pass and a wonderful put down. His second NRL try. This teenager, Luke Laliki. Caesar. Galvin working the left side. He's done it again. Dewey over in the corner. We are getting a treat tonight from a 19-year-old called Lachlan Galvin.
It's the West Tigers podcast, episode number 354, and how good is this? It's a post-victory edition of the West Tigers podcast. They are few and far between, but when they do happen, they're normally a pretty good thing. And of course comes off the back of the Tigers' 18-16 win over South Sydney at Campbelltown. Nick and Gary are here. They're going to share their one word in a moment, but I thought let's have a look at the submissions, the one-word submissions, that is, from the West Tigers podcast forum. There's been a whole lot of them, and maybe the guys might steal one here, or it might coincide with what they've got. I think a couple of them I've already got labelled as my one words. Barra, gritty was the word to describe that performance against the Rabbitohs. Far from perfect, but we did dig deep in defence. Logan R21, calmer, saying the earlier pass was well forward. In other words, yeah, they didn't deserve to win because even if that second pass was okay, the earlier pass was certainly forward. Mike's word was confused. I happen to agree with you, Mike. Like, did we actually win? It's a mixed, sort of strange feeling out of that game. Rach 09's word was relief. You have to take any win you can. That's so true. Tiger symmetry, forward. 3 different meanings of the word forward for the one-word submissions from Tiger symmetry. Forward, as in forward pass. Forward, as in forwards. We need 2 big impact forwards. And forward in terms of looking forward to 2025, the promise of the future. Chris's one word was ugly. Didn't need to be if our tackles stuck. We'll explore that a little bit later on this edition of the pod. Plunder Monkey's word was scrambling. That's how we won the game, or what won us the game was our scrambling defence. Nat Max 78's word was 5. Haven't had 5 wins in a while in a season, which I think you said on the group chat, Nick, was a 20% improvement over the last 2 years, which is kind of sad to think that one win boosts you 20%. The last Ronan's word was relief. Tigertown SFS, Campbelltown. The tide might be turning out there. Tigerton, scramble. Mac Tiger, discipline. We actually found some. Tigersman, hooray. It's a good one word. Kiwi Tiger came up with a number, 13. 13 wins in 3 years. Saying the win hasn't papered over the cracks. There's big work still needed on the roster. One word, disjointed. We have no fluidity and no team identity. Davey Farrell, diabolical Dewey, which was straight to the point for Davey Farrell. Russ Tuddy, 63, competitive. To be competitive, given the difficult circumstances the team has faced, gives me hope for next year. So some really good ones in there. Eddie also came up with a number for his one word. His number is 16, and that's obviously how many points South scored, and that's how you get a win, said the wise old Eddie, who, Gary, I think, has had a big weekend. If I can go off what I'm reading on the chat, I think Eddie's not in the proper headspace to be doing a podcast.
For me, it's just another sign that he only likes to come on when you lose, and he can be negative. We got a win, so he couldn't find positive Eddie, so I don't think he made it on.
Do you have a number or a word for us for one word?
I have multiple words for us. For me, it's Wooden Spoon Grand Final. I think the biggest thing out of that game is it sets us up with a chance in the last round, if Parramatta doesn't win a game between now and then, to actually have a game where if we win, we don't win the Wooden Spoon. And for the last couple of months, I doubt many of our fans thought we're going to be in a position where we could possibly escape the wooden spoon. So for me, that's a bit of a positive and something to kind of look forward to as this season kind of drags out to its inevitable kind of finish.
Yeah, can't come quick enough in some ways. Just thinking about if it does come down to that Eels game, channeling my inner Eddie Otto, I would suggest they're the kind of games that we don't win.
100% the games we don't win, but I was talking to Nick before we jumped on, and maybe the NRL can around this and send the game to Vegas.
Yeah,
Send the wooden spoon grand final each year across to Vegas.
Correct, exactly. Okay, not a bad idea. And a good one that would be for Yoddy's department. When was the last time we beat a team twice in one season?
We've beaten them by twice in a season.
Yeah, that doesn't count, Nick. But A for effort, but yeah.
Nick's like the kid in class that you have to praise when they get close to a right answer.
Yeah. Or the old sale of the century, you know, when Tony Barber would say, "Who am I?" and he'd buzz in and say, "Tony Barber."
Yeah, that's Nick.
I feel like we might have been in the same class, Gary. You know me too well.
Yeah, I was up the top of the class, so I didn't pay much attention to you.
Correct.
Gary was your teacher, Nick. Nick, what's your one word?
I had a lot of words too, but there were a couple of good ones in that list that you read through. Forward was hits a note, doesn't it? We are moving forward slowly, and I'll take any of the little wins that we can get. So, you know, as you mentioned too, Joel, in the group chat, I did say that 5 wins now gives us a 20% win increase on last season's results and also 2022 season results too. And for me, that's trending upwards. So my word, I'll say trending. Got to take those little wins.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Eddie actually stole I was going to say 16 as well. I've got 16, not 28. It's the first time in 7 weeks that we haven't conceded 20, 30 or 40 points. And as Eddie says, you're not going to win any or very, very few NRL games if you're conceding more than 16 or 18 points in a game, Gary.
Not to go negative, though, I'm still not... It was a greatly improved defensive effort last night, but I also don't think South threw a lot at us. So that defence still needs a lot of work. The effort and the commitment to defence last night was great, but I still think there were a few issues structurally with our defence, and we're lucky that Souths were a little bit over the shop and bombed a couple of tries as well, if we're being really honest.
Correct.
Yeah, Gary, I was going to say South really shot themselves in the foot a few times, didn't they, during that game? There were a couple of instances I remember, and we didn't score a point the last half hour of that game last night either, which is another thing that we can talk about. But during that half hour where we didn't score
a try for the last 50.
Yeah, correct, which that's probably a concern too, right? But on the flip side, one of those other words that you mentioned, Joel, was gritty, and that did come out in the way we defended. And on the midweek pod last week, we did talk about, I remember mentioning the way that we have to play if we want to beat South is to show a lot of attitude in defence, and they did that. It's funny, though, because when you look at the stats, we missed a hell of a lot of missed tackles. I think we missed 57 in total in the whole game. That's a lot. I think it was double what South's made. And we were on the wrong side of a lot of those stats too for that game last night. But we came out on top. We held them out, albeit with some funny decisions that could have gone either way and usually go the opposite way for us. But again, it's a win, and I'm just happy to walk away those 2 points.
Gary, just with your point, I mean, the thing is that we need to be able to win these gritty games. If we won 3 or 4 of the games that could have gone either way this year, perhaps more mid-season and earlier in the year, the club would be in a totally different place. If we were sitting on 9 wins, we'd all be saying we're well and truly on our way. Like, I think it does come a little bit back. I like to use that sort of as the template, as what Richards had said about South when he first got there. They were dreadful, and they were okay, and then they were pretty good, and then they were really good. Like, and I'm not saying that we're there yet, but I think that's the next step for the team, is to be able to sort of win 50% or win a fair share of our games where it could go either way. Whereas maybe the last couple of years, anything that's been sort of an arm wrestle, we've tended to capitulate more often than not. So I think, gritty and determined is probably not a bad place to aim for at the moment.
And a lot of that comes down to knowing how to win those games.
Yeah.
And what to do in those situations. And I do have to say, having a guy come over in a key position like Jerome Luai next year, he's going to help immensely in those really tight games because he knows how to win those games. And it's not all him. He's probably played next to one of the best players in a long time at winning those close games in Nathan Cleary. But he's going to bring that across the club. And I think that's been a big problem over the last couple of years. Is if you look back over the last couple of years, there's lots of games you can look at and say, oh, we should have won that game. Going back just the last South game we played, the one up at Gosford, that's a game that we should have won. But crucial errors at crucial times really hurt us. And I think when you're coming from being that poor team to getting that okay team, a lot of that is around learning how to win those games that are 50-50 games, because we don't win 50% of those 50-50 games. We probably win 10 to 20% of those 50-50 games. And once you get a little bit better than at that, that gets you up another 3, 4, possibly 5 wins in a season. Mm. And that's really crucial moving into next year. And I think guys like Jerome Luai is going to make a massive difference to that. We wouldn't be fighting for the wooden spoon if a couple of those close games that we all got on here on pods and spoke about, it was a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times people had as their one word was missed opportunity. That's the next step. That's how you become an okay team, is you don't miss those opportunities. And we've done that too much over the last couple of years. And the last thing I'll say about it was Eddie actually said something along the lines on our chat, I think it might have been this morning, about us teams having to play poorly for us to win.
Yeah. This is what I've been harping on for years about, yeah.
And it's a really true point.
Yeah.
But you've also got to consider we've won the last 2 wooden spoons, so we're the worst team in the comp. You do need teams to play poorly when you're the worst team in the comp, because that's what you are. Every team is better than you. So I think that's really crucial over the next 12 to 18 months, is we move away from being that worst team in the comp, that we start to win those games where we put ourselves in a position to win, whether we're playing well or not. And that's how you start to build off the bottom of the table.
Something a little bit out of left field, but you're talking about Luai. So let's just sort of shelve regular programming for a moment and just think this through. So let's say that Cleary doesn't play another game this year, and Jerome Luai, there's either 2 things that can sort of happen. Jerome Luai can lead them and take over, like what we've seen this year when he's been the main man at Penrith. Let's say he leads them to a premiership. He steps up, he becomes the main man. There's that outcome, or there's the outcome, which I think is great for West Tigers next year, which I think is really good. What if it doesn't work? What if this is the year that Penrith, without that Cleary factor, do you think that sort of affects Luai a little bit as he makes the jump across? So I think, is it better for us that he does sort of lead them to another premiership or another grand final at least? Any sort of thoughts on that? It's just off the top of my head.
If I were to jump in there, look, obviously Jerome's a confidence player. So if in your scenario Nathan Cleary doesn't play another game and the Panthers make it to the grand final, then that's really going to rest on Jerome's gameplay, right? So he is going to have to lead that team to get that far. If they don't make the grand final, they're still going to go pretty deep. They're not going to get knocked out first round in the semis. That's not going to happen anyway. So look, Jerome's a winner. The Panthers are the winners. Their structure has been proven over the last 4 seasons of how good they are. I think regardless of whether they win the comp or not, I still think Jerome's going to walk into Concord, after he has his break, towards Christmas, and really, he's going to walk in with his head held high, because he's going to be it, isn't he, when he walks in? Like, he's going to be the king of the show. He's going to walk in, all eyes are going to be on him, and he's going to love that. Mm. And I just think he is that much of a confidence player and person, and he's got a good ego, which I think we need in our team. I honestly think he's going to have a huge impact, regardless of where Penrith finish this year, how deep they go into the finals. But, and what you're saying too, Gary, I think we've seen Appy the last couple of years. He's been really strong. He continues to have a dig every single game, plays with so much passion, determination. You could see how much of a relief it was on his face when the siren went yesterday or last night when that final siren blew, in the last 5 seconds, if you watch it back, Appy was watching the clock. He was just watching those seconds count down because he knew this was our win. We're not going to lose it now. But I think when Jerome walks in, he's got another winner from the same structure that Appy's used to coming in with him. Our young guys have had that experience this year. So Lockie Galvin is only going to be complemented massively with Jerome beside him in the halves next season. And you've got the younger guys, Buller at the back who are really going to benefit off the back of Jerome coming in next season too. And again, we're kind of drifting towards next year, but I love thinking about it, and I keep saying it every time we're on. I just love thinking about the possibilities of where we could go next season, and it is exciting. Like, it really is. I really hope Penrith go deep this season. I couldn't care. Like, I'm not a Panthers fan, but I want to see Jerome lead that team. I'd love to see him lead that team without Nathan in the side.
Yeah,
I'd love to see him stand up.
For me, and I'll just answer this really quickly because I do want to talk a little bit more about last night's game because we don't want to skim over one of our 5 wins. But what I will say is that I think this season, Jerome having that increased leadership role at Penrith has been really good for West Tigers. I think Nathan Cleary being injured, it's allowed him to get some time being the number 1 player, and I don't think he's ever really had that during his first grade career before. And even in State of Origin, he's had to step up to that kind of position as well. Not as much as he's had for Penrith, and I think that's been really good for preparing him for next season. So the more responsibility he can get over the next couple of months, while the season winds down and builds towards the grand final, I think that's going to be of benefit to the West Tigers. As long as they have a decent run during the semi-finals, and if Nathan Cleary's not there and he's running the show, then I'm quite happy. Like, that will be the more responsibility he can have over the next couple of months in a well-structured system that kind of supports him to kind of improve those skills, I think the better for the West Tigers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly my point, is that if he is able to step up and leads them to another premiership without Cleary, and maybe wins the Clive Churchill medal on the way through, how good is that for West Tigers come November 1 when he turns up to training? I mean, that would be massive.
With the medal around his neck, Joel.
Yeah.
With the Clive Churchill medal.
And rings on almost all his fingers. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to take all his fire away, though. Keep him with something to fight for.
I think if you're bringing him in as captain, you're bringing him in as there's nobody that is not going to command the respect as much as Luai would if he was able to achieve that. So anyway, we'll wait and see. Scramble was also my word, coming back to one word. Scramble was there despite 50 missed tackles, and I also have written down sound off, and that is because I turned the sound off, put it on mute, so I didn't have to put up with the Fox commentators. And it's a much more pleasurable, much more pleasant experience, especially when you're playing a team that, sometimes gets a little bit of favourable commentary and they're the better team and all this yada, yada, yada. It was a much less stressful experience turning the sound off. So, yep, that's a good tip for everybody. Okay, there's a few things to talk about out of the game. I thought we might start with a little bit of a look at some of the individual performances, if that's okay. And I think the best place to start is Heath Mason, who I've written down here, raw but dangerous. I liked some signs of him, and it was interesting because the Gray, the South fullback, he had a really good game. He was very dangerous, a little bit more experienced than Heath Mason. If he ends up anywhere near as good as him, it'd be a pretty good asset to have. Do you see his future? It's going to be hard here at fullback, you would think, Gary.
Yeah, it's funny with both Gray and Mason wearing headgear last night. It was hard not to make comparisons between them. Both fairly small, sprightly fullbacks who good at beating a man and were quite dangerous with the ball in their hand. I thought he was really promising last night. A couple of little errors that you kind of expect from a young guy, but I thought his positioning play was quite good. A couple of kicks he probably should have got into on the full that he didn't get to. That was probably my biggest disappointment in his game. With Buller at fullback, he's usually pretty safe under the high ball, and that was probably lacking a little bit. But he looks explosive, and he looks dangerous, and he looks quick, and a very different style of player to what Dream Buller is. Dream Buller is more your fullback that chimes into the back line and creates that extra man playing as your extra 5'8", where I think Heath Mason's more of a ball runner, and having him sniff around your forwards, especially late in the halves, I think he could be extremely dangerous in that position. So it's going to be an interesting development over the next 18 months because I don't think he's quite ready to be a regular NRL player now. But in 12 to 18 months' time, I think he's going to be knocking on the door, and there definitely is a lot of promise there. So I was really keen to watch him play last night, and yeah, he's an exciting prospect for sure.
But Nick, we're putting our cart before the horse, definitely. But the West Tigers' spine for the next couple of years looks pretty settled. Looks pretty. I don't know if I couldn't necessarily see him as a winger or a centre. I don't know how this is going to pave out for him at the West Tigers.
Yeah, I agree, and I haven't seen enough of him to figure out whether he can play in another position. But I'm like Gary. I was really looking forward to seeing Heath get his opportunity last night, and to be honest, I thought he slotted into the team really well. He didn't look out of place. I loved the way he was sniffing around the play on every set. He's very quick, and you're right, Gary. He's a runner, a little bit different to Jahream. Very quick off the mark. Did make a couple of boo-boos, like you said. One of them, actually, you said he was pretty good positionally. And I don't want to nitpick too much, but there was one moment in the 27th minute where Cam Murray made a bust and South went about 50, 60 metres up our end. Cody Walker put a little grubber into the in-goal in the last, which ended up being knocked dead by Isaiah Papali'i. And when he knocked dead, Heath was up in the defensive line on the last, and he kind of looked at Heath and, gestured like, what are you doing? Where are you? So there was only that one time that I saw he was caught out of position, but apart from that, I liked what I saw. So, yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because we do produce a lot of these young kids, and obviously we can't hang on to all of them, but we've just got to, if he's good enough, we'll fit him. But yeah, I'm not sure where you'd fit him if Jahream's going to be that number one.
It is a hard, if you're a winger, there's two wing spots. If you're a centre, there's two centre spots. But fullback, it's a difficult position. It's not hard to get stuck behind someone. Pappenhausen, perfect example. I just wanted to make the point too, before we started talking about the individual players, the importance of the win, Gary. Coming into 2025, if we had lost that game, if that pass hadn't been called forward, we lose that game, and maybe potentially we lose to Manly, we lose to Parramatta, and we're going into 2025 on a 10-game losing streak. I think it just takes that bit of pressure off. I think it was a very important win to get for the club.
Yeah, and not just for the club. I think it's really important for the club. Any win, any sign that we're improving and building is really important. And going from 4 wins to 5 doesn't seem like much. But it's the context of it. It's when we haven't been able to get past 4 wins for the last 2 seasons. So getting that 5th win is at least a mathematical improvement that you can kind of look at. I think watching us play, there have been improvements this year. But if we were stuck on 4 wins again, that's a hard argument to kind of make because the results don't show that. So that's a positive as well. But I must say, as a fan, when South went over for that try that was disallowed, I was shattered. And I didn't look to the referee. I just looked to the player going over. And I guess I was the opposite of the South Sydney box, that if you saw them celebrating the try, my heads were in my hands. And it wasn't until I heard people cheering around me that I realised something must have been up.
Yeah.
And for a fan, that loss last night would have been really difficult because with 3 minutes to go, we led that game by more than a try. And to lose in that fashion would have been devastating for the fan base, would have been devastating for the players, I'd have to think, because what do you have to do to win a game after all that effort defensively that they put in? And yes, they would have had an off-season to rebound, but that sort of stuff leaves scars as well. I think that was a crucially important game to get away with that win last night. And hopefully, you got all these young guys who are coming into grade, 4 teenagers playing last night, and there's got to be some reward for the effort that they put in, and they were fantastic. I know we're going to talk about the players in a moment, but it was great again to see that those young guys were the really standout players. But they need some reward for what they've put in and what they've gone through this season. And to lose that last night would have been heartbreaking for them, would have been heartbreaking for the fans, and would have been heartbreaking for the club.
I'm really glad that we got the win. Don't get me wrong, but I agree with Mike. It's a feeling of confusion. I feel, because I'm with you, Gary. I thought, there we go, we've lost it. And you're saying that the players deserve something. I mean, the fans, we deserve something to cheer as well. We've been through a hell of a lot. Did it leave a bit of a funny feeling for you, Nick? That's how I feel about the game. It doesn't feel like it necessarily was a win.
Yeah, it was just a typical ends to a Tigers game with a very different outcome, wasn't it? I think we're so scarred from, from being beaten on the bell or somehow shooting ourselves in the foot, where we give up a lead and lose that game that we should have won. So, I couldn't get out there last night, but I watched it on the lounge, and we had some friends over who are not Tigers fans. And I was sitting on the lounge, and when South scored that try with a few minutes to go, I was thinking, oh, no, here we go. I've seen this before. Please don't not be this again. And when first of all, when Whiten threw that pass in the lead up to that no try, that floated,
the NFL pass,
that floated well and truly forward, I blew up and I stood up and I said, no, that's forward. You can't play on. They played on. And I just thought, this has just got us written all over it. This is going to be a typical West Tigers defeat. And for that, and I was the same. When that pass, that last pass that led to the no try, I thought it was let go. I just had my head in my hands. I was like, I can't believe it's happened again. And my neighbour who was sitting next to me, he's jumping up and down. He's a Para supporter. He's like, oh my God, I can't believe what's just happened. The Tigers, poor Tigers. And then all of a sudden it's called forward. And honestly, I let out some weird demonic groan when it was called forward. It was just like a massive amount of relief just came out of my body. I could not believe we'd won a game in that fashion. So maybe the tide's turning, because I thought there were a lot of 50-50 calls in that game, and I honestly thought that we'd probably got the rub of the green.
A little bit better, yeah. Yeah,
I'd like to see that again, over and over again.
But I do agree with you. That word about confusion about the win, for me, it does feel like a little bit of a flat win for me. I don't know why. Like, we don't get many, and we should be celebrating it massively. But I maybe as Tigers fans, we're just accustomed to things not going our way. And like, even walking out of the ground last night, I remember walking out of grounds and being so exuberant around wins. And yeah, that kind of confusion is the right word, because it's a different sort of feeling for that win. And I put it down to maybe if there's a little bit more on the line and we were up closer to the 8, then it'd be that little bit more exciting. But hopefully we just start to get more wins, and it's not such a strange feeling to get a win. That's what I'm putting it down to.
Yeah. We don't know how to win. We don't know how to... what a win.
I don't know how to enjoy a win.
Yes, exactly. Caesar and Seyfarth apparently not charged by the match review committee. And there's a couple of performances there that are worth discussing just quickly as well. I mean, Aidan Caesar, we're going to take up this option for next year. I don't think we should, personally. I don't see where he fits. Good goal kicker. Goal kicking was the difference. That penalty kick that he kicked, which was a difficult kick, in all to give him the credit. But I don't see where he fits next year. I think he takes up a roster spot unless he's willing to take a reserve grade contract, Gary.
Yeah, for me, I'm not taking up that option, especially if Sullivan's still on the books. There's no way we can take up that option if Sullivan's still at the club. But even then, I don't think I'll take it up. I will give him credit. The kick he put across for Staines' try, the first try we scored, was an excellent kick. It was he read the numbers really well. He saw where the space was, and he put a really good kick. So I don't want to hammer him too hard. But things like the penalty he gave away on the try line that he was reported on, or a 6 again. It was only 6 again. You can't be doing that sort of stuff. And I think part of it is, I think he's struggling to keep up with the game a little bit. I think the game's gotten a little bit too quick for him, and his legs have got a little bit tired as he's got a little bit older. And I think the 2 suspensions come from that as well. He's just got an old-fashioned sort of tackling technique, and at 32 years old, I don't think he's going to be able to change that over an off-season. So I think he's going to continue to get those sorts of penalties and those sorts of suspensions. So I think he's a risk in that regard. One of our key playmakers this year, and he's spent 6 weeks on the sideline suspended. I don't think we can really afford that. And a couple of really poor plays last night. The kick out on the full was a terrible miss-hit of a kick, and we need to be better than that. So I'm probably wouldn't be taking up that option regardless of what happens with Sullivan next year. I think he will be on too much money to be a backup half anyway.
I think Sullivan's time at the club has come to an end because did you hear Benji in the press conference? He was talking about who he could pick in the halves, and he said, I didn't have anybody else I could call on, which didn't sound too good for Jayden Sullivan's prospects at the club. Nick, what's your thought? Caesar, a yay or an A?
Well, it's funny. I watched, I think there was a short interview with Aiden on the Tigers website during the week, and if you read between the lines, he was asked about his future, whether he'd be around next year, and he kind of said, he kind of hinted that he wanted to play, and then he made a comment. He said, it'd be nice to be around to help out in some way. So that to me, I think he is probably, and he went on to say how much he loves the club and how good they've been to him. So I kind of get the feeling that I don't think he would be unhappy playing reserve grade if Benji said to him, look, we'd like to put you into cup with the Magpies, and maybe we might have to draw on you during the season. And obviously, be there bringing the younger boys the experience and try and help, guide some of those fellas up into NRL as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's around, but yeah, I don't think he could be included in your NRL squad for sure.
We may be needing a half around State of Origin time next year. Something
Possibly.
I haven't really thought about, yeah.
Haven't had one for a while, have we?
No, not for a long, long time. Alex Seyfarth, I thought, had a good game. Normally, bench player, started the game. I don't think he did anything too wrong, Gary, aside from the late penalty.
I love, as soon as we're talking Seyfarth, it gets thrown away. To be honest, last night, he was set up for failure in my book, so I don't think he does well on an edge. I think his lateral movement's quite poor, and I don't like him starting games. So for me, he was set up to...
Double whammy.
Yeah, he was set up to fail from the outset. But I actually thought he had quite a strong game last night. I thought he ran the ball quite well, defended quite solidly. He does need to get things like that shoulder charge late in the game out of his game. He gets a pass on that for me because they left him on the field. But that's one that very easily... for the West Tigers could have been a sin binning, and if we get a sin binning at that time in the game, I think we lose that game.
I think so. Yeah.
So his technique has to be better in that regard. There was plenty of Tigers defence there. We should have had that covered regardless of him not doing that. So I think his decision around that needs to be better, and his technique needs to be better. You just know if you go into that sort of play and you drop the shoulder and don't use your arms, then you're going to get penalised every time. So you've just got to be a little bit smarter around those sort of things. But I thought, overall, I was generally pretty happy with his game last night, considering I think he was playing out of position and he was playing more minutes than I like to see him play.
I actually wouldn't be surprised if Benji's had a chat to Alex over the last 3 or so weeks, because if you watch him in games, and I like Seyfarth, I do, but I've been keeping an eye on him, because he's a bit of a hothead, right? But I've noticed
he's been baited a few times.
He's been baited a lot of times, especially the last couple of weeks. And if you watch him, he's been looking the other way and trying to stay out of it. And that's not what he was 4, 5, 6 weeks ago. So someone's had a word to him, which is good. So if he can contain that aggression, I think we could see a better version of Alex Seyfarth. Gary,
so you're saying you may have found religion and learnt to turn the other cheek?
You never know. Gary, you never know. God be with you.
Well, he's getting to be a little bit more of a senior player, so this is sort of make or break time for him. As we probably all agree, a lot of NRL teams would have Alex Seyfarth within their top 17 or 18 players, as a bench player, or, he's not a bad player. The discipline lets him down every now and then. If he gets that, if he becomes more of a leader, I thought he was probably on par with any of our starting forwards last night. I thought he was quite good. Doesn't necessarily mean that he's the answer long term, but credit where credit's due. Switching back to the backs, Luke Lilly, somebody put on the forum, they asked the question, has he earned a spot? Has he earned one of those wing spots for next year, do you think? Only 18, which we have to remember. Like, there's a lot there to like. I thought his hands were a lot better last night.
Like, it was only, like, he's only a month or so ago, just before he made his debut, he turned 18.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wouldn't say he's earned that wing spot yet. I don't think any 18-year-old, unless you're completely exceptional, kind of like Lockie Galvin and Benji Marshall in the past for us, really earns that spot. But I think he's in with a really strong opportunity of he's got to come into pre-season next year and he's got to work hard in the off-season and he's got to perform in those trial games next year. But I would have no problem penciling him in as getting first shot at one of those wing spots and moving River into the centres. With the way our squad's made up now there could be a signing that comes in and supersedes that over the off-season. But at this point in time, I would have no problem penciling him in for the first crack at those wing spots in the trials next year. But he's got to come in and work for it over the off-season.
Nick, an off-season, a good off-season with the NRL squad after having some experience, that you can sometimes you see a massive improvement in players over an off-season and in their physicality as well. Like, if we get him, he's definitely a little bit on the light side, but the trajectory that he's on with a good off-season, he could really step it up next year.
He could, and you've got to remember too, like we've said, he only turned 18, this year, right, mid-year. So there's a huge difference between a 17-year-old and an 18 going on 19-year-old physically. So, yeah, a good preseason can really benefit him. He's so quick, and that finish that he put on the Galvin pass when he scored in the corner was brilliant. When I watched that replay back, the dive, he launched that ball under the palm of his right hand and had so much control over it until it hit the ground. Like, that takes a lot of skill for an 18-year-old. Like all these kids, like Galvin, and like Buller, they're so young, but they've got so much raw talent. So yeah, any preseason, any extra work we can put into them over that preseason is really going to help that development for next year. I'm excited.
For me, that try is one of the highlights of our year.
Yeah.
The highlights for me have been those young 18-year-olds coming through and combining for tries like that. That ball Lockie Galvin threw for that try was a ripper, and I'm sure he's on your list to talk about. He was amazing last night, and that's one of the best balls I've seen from one of our halves in a long time. It was a bullet, and it was right on the chest, and it created the space for Lalia to get that ball down in the corner. So that one, and the one, it might have been against South as well, where Talon De Silva broke through and set up Lockie for a try.
In Gosford.
Those sort of things, seeing these young guys and do that, they're the highlights for me, because doesn't that point wonderful things for the future, that we've got these 18-year-olds coming to the side who have played together through the juniors, and they've just transitioned those sort of plays straight into our first grade side. Some of the best plays I think we've seen in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and that's a point that I made a few weeks ago, is that as difficult as it has been the last couple of years, our highlights reel is all from 18, 19, 20-year-olds, not from 31-year-olds like some other clubs who, we could mention. And I was going to, obviously mention that was a highlight. And I was just as impressed with the Galvin pass to Dewey for that try as well. That was a good passage of play there towards the end of the second half, where South had a few penalties, some 6 agains, and that was where we really scrambled really well and held them out and held them to that 4 points at half time. If we'd gone in 16-12 or something like that, then, and obviously they did have the sin binning at that time, but they still looked quite dangerous with the ball at times. I thought that was probably where the game was won, going in with that 12-point advantage at half time, Gary.
And the other thing I want to mention, I can't remember, just talking about Lockie there for a second, I can't remember whether it was the ball he threw for Luke's try or the one he threw for Adam Dewey's try, but he was tackled the play before on the opposite side of the field.
Yeah, bounced up.
And for me, that's what I like most about him. He can play both sides of the ruck, and I'm really excited for next year because I think we may see Jerome Luai play both sides of the ruck, and because Lockie has the ability to swing to both sides in that 5/8 position, because his speed at getting from being tackled, we did a hit up, and by the time we'd done that hit up and play the ball, he was set up on the opposite side of the field, so he went from the right to the left really quickly and put himself in the position to throw. I'm sorry, I can't remember which try it was, but it was just amazing to see how well and how early he sets himself up in position. For me, that's crucial as a playmaker. Getting into position early allows you to communicate with your outside backs. It allows you to, and it may have been that one as well. He was actually speaking to Sam Fainu and telling him the line he wanted to run. He pushed Sam Fainu inside him and got him to run the decoy inside him. And just his ability to get in position early and set up and tell the other players where he wants them to be, that's what makes him a great player. It's not just all the little things you see when he's got the ball in hand. It's what he's doing before the ball gets to him. And I think that's what changes a really good player from a really good player into one of those elite, exceptional players. And that's why I think he's going to make that real transition to being one of the premier halves in the comp.
He's just a natural footballer, isn't he, Lockie? He plays what's in front of him. And that creeping across the field too, Gary, he's seeing things before they happen. He's looking for changes in defensive structure and where those attacking possibilities are. And like you're saying, he's telling Sam Fainu where to run. Like he can see that, and
he's doing it at 18.
He's doing it at 18, which is incredible, right? And all of these kids that are coming through have got so much raw talent. And Benji was like this when he came through. And this is another reason why we talked about whether Benji should stay on. This is one of your questions in the last pod, Gary, for next season. And I think Benji, having been there himself, will only be more willing to give these guys that license to play what they see and to roam across the field, not be locked down to their one side of the field. So when you're talking about Jerome coming in with a lot of structure, but also that flair, and that individual sort of style of play that he likes to bring, and then you've got Lockie being able to do this as well. It's really exciting, is that these guys are. I think they'll probably complement each other quite well next season. Yeah.
So you're saying Benji may be giving them extra responsibility and treating them like senior players?
Don't go down that path, Gary.
What we have to do is we have to keep Galvin. That's going to be. It's got Tedesco 2.0 written all over it, unfortunately.
Mate, it's huge. Lots of people I talk to, and I won't name names, but there's lots of people I talk to who have their mindset that he's going to go at the end of this contract, and I have my fears there as well, because the agitation from his manager earlier this season and last off-season is really concerning. But he is a player that we can build this club around, and there's a couple other young guys there that we can build this club around. And last time we had that, we completely bottled it. We absolutely stuffed it up, and we were left with nothing. And it's taken to now to start to kind of build our way out of it with juniors coming through again. When that happened last time, our club pretty much went away from developing juniors, and that's why we've had that huge gap where we haven't had really strong quality juniors coming through. Well, we've got a lot of really good, strong juniors coming through. Our Jersey Flag side won again yesterday. They're up in the top 8. So there are a number of players. We've got. I know our reserve grade's getting flogged, but that side's packed with guys who are eligible for Jersey Flag. Our NRL side.
I thought you were going to say eligible for the shredder.
Yeah, there's some of those as well. There's lots of those as well. The ones I'm keeping are the ones that are still eligible to play in the juniors, though. And our NRL side is packed with guys who are not only eligible for Jersey Flag, are eligible for SG Ball. Like Talon De Silva was playing at SG Ball earlier in the season. Lockie Galvin's young enough to be playing SG Ball this year. These young guys are playing well above their station at the moment. And it's been a long time since we've had juniors like that coming through, and we can't stuff it. It's not just Lockie. We can't. We have to identify the right ones to keep, and we have to keep them. And it's really important. And Shane Richardson has his work cut out for him, because you just know at the end of next year, when Lockie Galvin can talk to other clubs, there won't be a club in the NRL who doesn't want to speak to him.
Yeah. Well,
sorry,
sorry, Nick. I was just going to say there's a club in the eastern suburbs that's looking for a 5'8". You know, that's what scares me.
Well, and like as Phil Gould was saying last week, he's already been at Canterbury Leagues Club over there in the last 2 weeks. So,
no, but it was only to visit a friend or something.
Yes, we all believe that. We know that's how Phil Gould works. Yeah. So the club has to get this right, and if you've got to use Jerome Luai to be constantly in his ear to get him to stay, and it's really important that by this time next year, you want him signing a contract before it gets close to going on the open market. I don't know what our chances are, but the club needs to make that happen.
100%, yeah.
We've got to get some brown paper bags to keep Lockie happy.
Yeah, well, what's in the bags, mate, that's important, not...
Well, that's true. As long as he stays away from Latrell, it will be okay. But what I will say about Lockie, and I don't want to go on too long, but I know we spoke about this, Gary, in our chat, but I'm a little bit concerned when he had that interview on the Tigers website the other day, and they asked him about the contract agitation during the year, and he said, "Oh, yeah, that was frustrating. I just want to go out and play footy. I love footy." And then he made a comment, one line, where he said, "I'm going to be here next year." And I thought, oh, don't say that, because what about beyond? Because we want beyond, not just next year. But yeah, we need to. Next year's massive. We need to turn that corner. He needs to be happy. We need to promise him the world. So yeah, big year coming up.
Yep, well said. Somebody else who I think deserves a pat on the back is Sione Fainu, who I thought was very, very good. His brother was a bit quiet.
Not just a pat on the back, Joel. He deserves a contract.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. And concerningly, Fanua Pole, who also had a very good game, that contract status has to be upgraded soon too, you would hope, because those two are going to be very much relied upon up front next year if things don't radically change in terms of bringing in new forwards from outside.
There were some really impressive things from Pole last night, I thought. His footwork, once again, at the line was great. But there was at least one kickoff return, that we all remember back to that Canberra game a couple of years ago where he just went flat out at him. He did that a couple of times last night, which was really, really impressive to see. His extension is really crucial to get because outside of probably Ice last night. I thought Ice had a fantastic game and ran for over 150 metres, but he's not here next year. Steph had a fairly big game as well last night, metre-wise. He's not here next year. So at the moment, a lot of weight's falling to Pole, and I think that's something we need to get sorted out because he is a genuinely starting prop forward in the NRL. So he's a guy we've got to get sorted. But I thought Sione Fainu was fantastic last night. I think his football over the last 2 to 3 months, for a guy who at the start of the season, I was starting to think maybe he wasn't going to quite make it because he'd spent a fair bit of time at the club. He'd been here for a couple of years before Latu and Samuela came across, and he'd spent all that time playing in our reserve grade side. And I was starting to get a little bit concerned that he wasn't going to make the step up. But I think the last couple of months of football has been really strong for him and yeah, a real positive moving forward. So he's one I want to see us continue to develop and continue to get the best out of him. But I thought he had a great game last night.
You can kind of maybe read between the lines in that I think the club recognises that we need maybe 1 or 2 forwards, but I think the way they're thinking is Pole takes one of those spots. And, maybe we need one prop or, see what we can get out of Clemmer for another 12 months. I wanted to reference what Snake said on the West Tigers podcast forum. And I've got to give a little rap to the little plug for the forum because we've just passed 50,000 posts, which I think is a tremendous achievement.
And only 44,000 of them by me.
Correct. Snake did say we need to hit the weights this off-season. What he was talking about is that word physicality that I'm always talking about. And I think it leads to what others have said about, we missed over 50 tackles because a lot of the time we're just not dominating in the tackle. We're having to come at them for a second time or a third grab. I I am a broken record on it, but our body shape is not quite right this year. We need to bulk up in this off season. Do we agree with that? Do we need some more muscle to be able to match it with some of these teams? Because let's face it, if South had their full strength team, if South were on, we probably wouldn't have been able to hang into that game.
For me, it's not just bulking up. I do think we need bigger bodies, but it's also our technique. I think we tend to catch attacking plays instead of hitting with the shoulder. We don't hit with the shoulder enough. We don't dominate in those tackles enough. For me, and I've said this a number of times over the last couple of years, since they've kind of reduced the wrestle a fair bit, the first contact's become a lot more important. So winning that first contact and that leads you being able to control how the player hits the ground, and it allows you to get players on their back, which slows down the play of the ball. We don't win that first contact with the ball, and we don't win it in defence, and that's why we're sitting where we are. So a lot of extra work with upper body strength over the off-season is crucially important, but we've also got to look at our tackling technique so we're not catching players and holding them up. Because the way we kind of defend, and I spoke about this, must have been 12 months ago, is that we catch and hold them up, and then kind of that third man comes in and you kind of put them to the ground in that way. Really, that first contact with the shoulder has to be a lot better than what we're doing than catching.
Sometimes I think, Nick, we look a little fragile, like in defence. It doesn't fill me with a whole lot of confidence.
No, I agree, Joel. I think what Gary was saying about technique's massive as well. I think that's probably the biggest part. Also, maybe physical development of some of our younger players, because we do have a lot of younger players across the park too. So as these guys get a little older and pre-season under their belt, get on a good strong weights program in the off season, they'll come back bigger and stronger, and that combined with some work on the defensive technique will hopefully tighten us up a little bit. But yeah, we do look a bit fragile at times. But again, there's a lot of potential there. If you look at our backline, we've got, Gary's mate Adam Dewey in the centres, not the world's best defender, and he's not overly big. He has lost a little bit of weight as he's come back into the team after his long injury layoff too. Charlie Staines plays his heart out, and I love Charlie Staines, but he's not a big boy either. And that will be, supplemented next year, with Skelton when Skelton pops onto the wing. So yeah, there's room for improvement. Physicality need to improve that, Joel. Your favourite word.
Yeah, it is. The other person I thought, just while we were talking, I was thinking about was the service from Talon De Silva from when Appy went off and had a break. We didn't really lose a lot there, which is great to see, and it's good to see that maybe, or hopefully that's the strategy moving forward, because Appy, just his days of 80 minutes I think are over. I think you want to be able to bring him back on if you need him for that second stint, and have a little bit of energy in his legs. We all need to chip in and send Appy on a 1 month holiday, don't we? All the fans should put $5 in an envelope and send him for a month to lay under a palm tree or something. He just looks exhausted, burnt out.
Yeah, he needs a real good rest over the off-season. He really does. And you know what? For Talon as well, for someone that said at the start of the year, he said himself he wasn't impressed with his own form and he was struggling. To be thrown into the top 17 for pretty much the back end of the year after Jake Simpkin went to Manly, he's played quite a bit of games over that period, and his form has improved out of sight. Like, I didn't see a lot of him the first half of the year playing in Cup. And I did read, reports that he wasn't playing all that well, but he has really impressed. He really does look like a young Robbie Farah. He's got a lot of speed at the moment too. He's just very silky. Yeah, I'm going to really enjoy watching him develop.
So for me, that 14 spot for next year is Talon's. I don't consider anyone else we have in the club. I don't see us signing anyone else in the club, bring into the club, who kind of takes that role for him. I think it's really crucial that Appy's playing 60 to 65 minutes a game. We've busted him this year, and it's unfair. And I did say the other day, and I still stand by that, some of that fault does fall to him, because he's saying he wants to play those minutes. He's saying he doesn't want to come off. that needs to be taken out of his hands. He needs a break in games. I'm not talking about doing what Penrith did with him and have him sitting on the bench at the start of the games. I want him out there at the start of games because he is a leader in our club. But he needs a break. And not just does he need a break, we need to develop what's coming after him. Like, we need to set ourselves up for post-Appy because he's got 2 years to run on his contract. I doubt you're keeping him here after that contract runs out. He's at the back end of his career. And the way you do that is by giving Talon more time. And over the next 2 years, I want to see Talon's time kind of increase. I'm hoping in that last year of his contract, you maybe have an Appy playing 40 minutes a game because Talon's taking the other 40. But going back to last night, what impressed me most about last night, Talon's had some games where his running game this season's been excellent, where he's got an out and he's made breaks down the field and he's set up tries. That's great. What I was most impressed with last night was his crisp and accurate service from dummy half. He was putting the ball out in front of his runners. He was getting his forwards onto the ball, and he was getting the halves nice ball so they're moving forward as they come onto it. That's your biggest job as a hooker. That's your biggest job as a dummy half. And he's got the flashy plays, but that's what I want to see over the next 12 to 18 months through the end of next season is I want to see that consistent, good ball work and consistently bringing his players onto the ball. And Appy's the best person in the game to learn that from. And that's what Appy's role is over the next 2 years of this contract, is to develop Talon to the point where he's the starting hooker when Appy leaves. Because Talon is a real talent, and he's our hooker for the next 10 years after Appy retires. So that's what's really important. So it's not just to get Appy a break, it's to develop Talon as well. Talon was fantastic last night. He only played that short little bit, and Appy was only off for about 10 minutes. But even that 10 minutes, he came on much more refreshed. And we had a little period where we had them both on the field, but that looked a little bit confused for me as well. So if we're going to have a period where we have both Appy, Talon, plus two halves on, we've got to be smarter about how that. It kind of looked like none of them knew what to do in that sort of role. Like we end up playing, Appy's out playing in the halves along with two halves with Caesar and Galvin on the field, and it just got a little bit clunky during that period. But there may be an opportunity where Appy kind of plays that 13 role for 10, 15 minutes in a game as well to get Talon a little bit more time. Because there's no doubt he could probably do that as well.
I don't necessarily want to spend any time discussing the refereeing performance, but I did like what Adam Dewey did say to Belinda Sharp, and he nailed it on the head. He said it perfectly, and this is what I said after she refereed our last game, where everything is policed, everything is refereed. Dewey said to her, it's a better spectacle, Belinda, if you just let us play. And that is so accurate. He nailed it. You know, not everything has to be adjudicated on, has to be ruled on, has to have the referee interfering. You know, she's like managing the game. Just dial it back. You know, have a chat to Bill Harrigan, Belinda. You know, just pull it back a little bit. You know, over refereeing. The other thing is Campbelltown. Like, I think the people of the MacArthur deserve a pat on the back. I thought that was going to be a pretty small crowd, but they came out in numbers. The club saying only, I think, about 1,000 tickets were still available. Like, the crowd looked really good on TV. So it's good to see. This year, that's definitely one thing you got to say. The people of the MacArthur have come out and supported the West Tigers, which is really, really good to see. Because it's such an important part of the club, isn't it? That we have that presence when we do play in Campbelltown, that the crowd comes out and supports the team. I think, as we've seen when we've been more successful, you know, the people of MacArthur will get out there in big numbers and follow the team when we are winning a few more games. So I thought that was well worth mentioning. Anything to add, boys?
I think it speaks volumes too for a team that's coming last. The crowds that are turning up, not just Campbelltown, but Leichhardt's had some decent crowds too. So
correct.
Yeah. Let's get some more wins next year, and you watch them all come flooding back, because we all remember what it was like in that 2005 ride as we came into the finals. We all remember what that crowd at the prelim against the Dragons was like at the football stadium. That was incredible. We were outnumbered, but geez, we made some noise. So yeah, we would love to get those days back.
Yeah.
Wouldn't we all?
They're all out there. We've just got to get them out of the woodwork. They will come back.
That's it. Yep.
And then they'll jump us get in the way to get tickets. We've been here all along. Anyway, midweek pod. Eddie has promised he's going to be here to record a midweek pod. I'm looking forward to that. We'll take on Manly this weekend. The return of
Going
Luke
to record
Brooks.
it on Tuesday as well.
Yeah. So that'll be good. Yachty's quiz.
I love Yachty's quiz. Can't wait for the new questions.
No, he does a very good job. Who was the player last week? Boy, he was obscure, wasn't it? I can't remember who he's...
Adam Nabel.
Adam Nabel, that's right. Yes.
Good
Yes.
old Adam Nabel, my favourite player.
Going way back. And I think Eddie took the opportunity once again to mention that Declan is like 14 years old. He doesn't deliberately do it, I don't think. But Declan is definitely older than 14, don't worry.
Yeah, it's 16.
16. Alrighty, thank you guys.
Thanks, Joel. Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, boys.